I'm sick of daydreaming, I just want the feeling of you in my bed. I'm down to just waste time right below your waistline.
Hi, I'm Anusha. I'm a designer, I'm an architect, I'm an entrepreneur. I've written a lot of books, I've made movies, and currently I'm the owner of the sustainable clothing brand Colorstaka. So when I started Colorstaka, my whole goal for all of it was to make people aware about sustainability. So I curate and collect and sell secondhand clothing that are brought in from other countries like Italy and Japan. And my whole goal with this whole endeavor was to have people realize that there is a lot of potential in the secondhand clothing market. There is already a lot of clothes that are currently in circulation in the economy that can be reused, that should be reused. If not, they will end up in a landfill, contribute to pollution, contribute to the microplastics in the ocean, and it will add to our carbon footprint. So my goal was really to make sure how we can do our part to really help sustainability and really help reduce our carbon footprint by wearing secondhand clothing. And I wanted to show people that yes, there is a lot of beautiful clothes, beautiful pieces, perfectly tailored, perfectly cut, perfectly stitched secondhand pieces that still have a lot of potential in them. When I first came up with the idea of the things to do other than social media book, it initially started off as a list of things on my phone. I realized that I had created a dependency on the internet for dopamine, and I really wanted to put a stop to that, and I wanted to use my time in productive ways. So I literally wrote down a list of things on my phone that I kept adding to, and that ultimately ended up turning into a book. So originally it was just a list of things on my phone that I put together. And around that time I was living in Los Angeles, and I had a roommate who had a really bad social media addiction. And I really wanted to see her get off of her phone, and I would assign her these little tasks that she would complete, which ultimately coalesced into the book Things to Do Other Than Social Media. The idea for my second book, Bangla Cinema Coloring Boy, came from the way I noticed that people were interacting with my first book, Things to Do Other Than Social Media. So when people got my first book, Things to Do Other Than Social Media, the very first thing they would do is they would fill out the coloring page that was in that book. And then I realized that people were really gravitating towards this idea of coloring because as adults, people don't really engage in creative artwork. They don't engage in creative work. So I wanted to create a book, a coloring book for adults. And I also wanted to kind of preserve this lost art of Bengali cinema posters in a book format. So I illustrated old vintage Bengali cinema posters and created outlines so adults could color those in, engage in a creative activity, but also the next generation could be well informed about all the cinema, Bengali cinema of the past that we didn't grow up with, but which will ultimately get lost if it's not celebrated or talked about more often. When I first had the ideas for the books, I put them all together. I created the books, I created mock-ups at my house on my own, and then I started to raise capital by selling clothes on Colorstaka, and then I ordered a lot of stock lots of the book, which I ultimately ended up selling on Colorstaka. As I was selling my books on Colorstaka, Jatra reached out to me through Instagram and then asked me to house a shelf in their local store, which I was very ecstatic about. Jatra is like a huge kind of part of this community, which is really great that I could be celebrated in a space like that. Jatra reached out to me on Instagram, and then I went to visit them, and I had a wonderful meeting with all the people there, and then they, ever since then I formed an alliance with them, and they're hosting my books and my sketchbooks.